Think business news is all numbers? Not here. We've got the stories behind the headlines, fun facts, insider gossip, and details you won't find in print. Join us as we pull back the curtain on Orlando's biggest business moves and give you the scoop you didn't know you needed. Welcome to the Business Backdrop from Orlando Business Journal. Hey there, and welcome to the Business Backdrop with Orlando Business Journal, sponsored by Edition Financial. My name is Richard Bilbao. I'm the Editor-in-Chief of the Orlando Business Journal, and we have a great episode today talking about roads and transportation and how that all impacts our region. And as the song goes, life is a highway, and I want to drive it all night long. If you know the song, I kind of split the two choruses together, but you're following me. But first, we're going to take a quick pit stop in our main headlines of the week, like we always do. So let's roll right into those. First up, a Central Florida tech firm once valued at billions of dollars has dissolved. That company is Luminar Technologies, which has now been acquired by Microvision, a Washington state-based company, for $33 million. The sale was completed on February 3rd, marking the end of one of Central Florida's well-known tech companies. For more on that and Luminar's struggles, you can find more of those stories on OrlandoBusinessJournal.com. Now we're going to head south to Osceola County. A major grocery chain has plans for new retail development in St. Cloud. A new 50,966 square foot retailer is planned for the city. The development includes a liquor store, space for online pickup and delivery, and an area for a gas station. While the brand is unknown, when we looked at the size and similar projects, Publix seems to be one of the closest contenders for that brand. We're going to head over to our main hub of the area, the Orlando International Airport, which has eyed $550 million to fund construction projects over the next 3 years. The Greater Orlando Aviation Authority approved that funding in interim financing for projects including taxiways and terminal improvements. This comes as Orlando International Airport has added 5.2 million passengers in December 2025 versus December 2024. So that's just a snapshot of some of our big stories of the week. If you want to find more about these stories and others, we recommend you go to OrlandoBusinessJournal.com. And now we're going to head right into our main piece right after these words from Edition Financial.
When it comes to meeting your short and long-term saving goals, you need a financial partner focused on helping you, not their bottom line. At Edition Financial, we see the real you. For more than 85 years, we've helped Central Floridians get the most for their hard-earned savings. Compare our saving rates to the big banks, and we think you'll like what you see. And with convenient money management tools and personalized guidance, we make saving easy. Edition Financial, exceptional banking for everyone since 1937.
And now we're going to go into our main story of this episode, which is about transportation and major projects that are going to improve the region. To do that, I've invited senior staff writer of the Orlando Business Journal, Ryan Lynch, to join me here in the room to talk a little bit more about the upcoming projects. Ryan, how's it going?
Pretty good. How are you doing today, Richard?
I'm doing fantastic, Ryan. Thanks for asking. So Ryan, the thing I wanted to start with real quick is before we dive into this project, can you give us kind of a 30,000 foot in the air look at what's happening in transportation in Central Florida?
Sure. If I was a traffic helicopter in Central Florida right now, I think you'd see a lot of congestion. Obviously, the area over the past couple of decades has grown with all the rooftops and different things coming out of the ground, which has led to a lot of folks from the state government to some of the other entities involved in transportation really investing in roadways. Obviously, I-4 has continued to expand. They're working on projects closer to the tourist corridor to expand the capacity there. You have the Florida's Turnpike, which is expanding in both Lake County and Osceola County, both places where you've seen a lot of residential growth. And the Central Florida Expressway Authority continues to both add new tolled expressways as well as expand some of their existing ones in corridors where there's a lot of traffic as of late.
When, for folks who know that roadways are important, but they don't know the true economic value that they can bring, can you dive into it? Kind of give us, again, this is sort of the broader look at why are roads important? Why are these types of investments critical to the region?
Sure. Most of the roads here, if you're working in Central Florida, you're commuting in some way. So whether you are a driver or you're riding a Lynx bus, you are going to your job via, transportation on the roads. And if those are congested, that's going to be a problem for your commute and your ability to live closer to work. It's also the main way for commerce to get through the region, right? On the highway side, interstate commerce is a big deal for sort of bringing cargo through, being able to connect some of the visitors who come into Orlando to Disney, to Universal, all those places. Those are all big deals. And if you're facing congestion in that network, that is going to create problems that cost businesses, cost residents, cost other folks their time and money.
Mhm. Ryan, the story we wanted to talk about today comes from the Central Florida Expressway Authority. Before we dive into that project, just real quick, kind of in a nutshell, for anyone who doesn't know what CFX does, what are they? Kind of what's their goal? What is their kind of purpose for the region?
Sure. In the Central Florida Expressway Authority, they have a network of tolled roadways throughout Central Florida, spanning from as far west as Lake County to as far east as Brevard County. Most people who come into Orlando notice that if you're going, let's say, to the airport, you're going to ride on some of their tolled roadways to connect through. And they obviously fund their construction primarily through tolls that people pay.
Yeah.
And so they have a wide-ranging network of roads. I think their work plan is up to more than $4 billion now. So that includes both expansion of existing roadways and adding new expressways, which they have multiple projects in the work to kind of connect areas of Orlando.
So let's dive into it. The project, there's a project along the southern side of Central Florida. I've seen it called the Southern Beltway, about 14-mile expressway through Osceola County. Can you talk about what that project is, why it's important? Because from our readership, they obviously, this project means a lot to them. But from what you've seen, like, what is it about and why do you think it's created such a big following?
Sure. And the Southern Beltway itself is more than 55 miles across a swath of Central Florida, which includes places like St. Cloud, which has also seen that residential growth. A portion of it, the 14-mile State Road 534, that goes from an area of Lake Nono where there's a lot of, if you've ever driven on Narcoossee Road, you've seen the gridlock there. And the sort of goal of it is to provide a almost relief valve for a lot of that local traffic that has built up there. So by using this first segment of it to kind of help with that, their hope is that they can eventually expand to a broader network that would expand to much of Osceola County, where there's already thousands of units of housing that are prepared for that particular area where the road will be at. So they'll have 4 separate projects that will kind of form this beltway that connects a part of Central Florida that wasn't connected by anything other than local roads before.
Yeah. Ryan, I'm going to ask you to put on the economic development hat that you wear so much in the region. When you were talking about so many units, your story had mentioned Sunbridge, and that there was entitlements of about 29,000 units, a little bit more than that is what your story said, and about 10.53 million square feet of commercial space and 5,000 hotel rooms. What does that tell you? When you look at that much development coming up and the roadway that this is going to kind of cut through, how do those two facts correlate from an economic development standpoint?
Sure. And I think from the CFX side, they're planning this all now because that development is coming. If I'm a developer and I want to buy land, I don't necessarily want to buy it directly in the path of a potential roadway, but I want to buy it in close proximity because that connects. Let's say I'm a residential developer, that connects me with other parts of the region. People can commute from my place to other parts of the area where they might be working or playing or living otherwise. But I think when you see this much development coming, it's natural to now have to think about the transportation network. And if you're somebody who's a developer, you're going to want to know if your area is going to be properly connected, because if it can't handle the traffic, that's going to create issues and make it a less attractive place to locate than if you're closer to infrastructure that is easy to use or in close proximity to you versus having to take, let's say you have to go right now Narcoossee all the way up to State Road 17, that takes time and you're going through traffic. So if you have a direct connection, that becomes attractive.
Ryan, covering this industry for the many years that you have, what are some of your general thoughts closely watching transportation and how it's evolved in Central Florida?
Sure. I think you've seen a lot of roadway development. I think people who grew up in Orlando in like the 1980s, they realize the city is completely different than compared to now, where you have Sunrail who's looking to expand and potentially form a network in Central Florida. You have Lynch looking at ways to expand bus service. You have the Central Florida Expressway Authority expanding out. And the challenge is finding the money to do all this, right? If you're FDOT and you're expanding I-4, that obviously costs money and it's competing with other projects that are there. If you're CFX, it's the same thing with your tolled expressway money. You're figuring out what projects you can sort of spend money on and still have room to grow and meet the need. So a lot of it is sort of a battle of the demands that the growth has brought Central Florida. So like the population growth has come and the region is trying to meet that. Now the question is, how do we fund all that? How do we best meet those needs? And how do we figure out what the next corridors are where there's going to be a need for transportation infrastructure, like roads, like bus routes, like all these things that a community needs.
Right. Ryan, just one last piece I wanted to touch on. If you go north of Sanford, you had written about another roadway that's happening in Sanford. It has to do with the airport. What can you share on that? Obviously, some of the specifics might not come to mind, but what can you share on that specific Sanford Airport connector?
Sure. The 417 State Road 417 connector basically would provide a direct connection from the toll road to the Sanford Airport. Seminole County is helping to provide $50 million for it to CFX, which is a relatively unique partnership. But the goal is to provide that direct connection that they don't currently have there. Obviously, the airport is growing right now. They've drawn a lot more flights in recent years, including their first international flight in a couple of years, and they're looking to continue growing that service. So having that direct connection would allow them to provide a road that would be convenient. Like a place like MCO, the Orlando airport already has multiple toll road connections in addition to the local roads. So that would provide a convenient way for travelers to get there and a much easier way to do so.
And then last but not least, Ryan, any transportation projects you're watching closely right now that you think are going to be big change makers in the region?
I mean, I think the continued work on I-4, whenever we write about it, there's a lot of reader interest in what's going on. And that's because many of them have to travel on that. So the amount of work they have going on in the tourist corridor towards Disney and even south of that towards Champions Gate, if you've ever driven that segment during certain times of day, it's just gridlocked.
Yeah.
And I think their goal with adding some of those tolled express lanes that they've already done with kind of the I-4 Ultimate up here, that might provide a way for people who are not necessarily stopping at Disney, but looking to continue on to Tampa to kind of surpass that traffic. So I think as those projects continue to develop, there's going to be a lot of interest in how that meets the needs and where there might be more needs, because they could add a few lanes, and that might help some, but if we continue growing, there might be continued traffic pressure in that corridor and other places.
That's fascinating. Well, Ryan, thank you for taking the time to chat with us about this. I really appreciate you being on here.
Definitely. Thanks for having me.
And for more stories from Ryan, as well as the other reporters with the Orlando Business Journal, please check the OrlandoBusinessJournal.com, and we'll see you right after this break from Edition Financial.
When it comes to meeting your short and long-term saving goals, you need a financial partner focused on helping you, not their bottom line. At Edition Financial, we see the real you. For more than 85 years, we've helped Central Floridians get the most for their hard-earned savings. Compare our saving rates to the big banks, and we think you'll like what you see. And with convenient money management tools and personalized guidance, we make saving easy. Edition Financial, exceptional banking for everyone since 1937.
So thank you to Ryan Lynch for joining us on that segment and sharing some insight on the transportation in the region. And thank you to Edition Financial for sponsoring the Business Backdrop. Well, that's a wrap for this episode. We hope you enjoyed it. And thank you for going behind the scenes with us on this episode. So please like, subscribe, rate our show, and tell your friends about the Business Backdrop. You can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever you get your podcasts. And until I see you next time, take care.